welcome to this lesson. In this series, I want to actually take you through how you can make use of ChatGPT for Excel. And this is a wonderful tool that will save you tons of hours of work and increase your productivity. Now let's start with how to actually add it, because it does not come with Excel by default. So you can see in my own Excel, ChatGPT for Excel is feasible, and I do make use of it to get my work done. So you go to add it, go to the Insert tab, click on the Insert tab, and come to Get Add-ins. Make sure you are connected to the internet and search for ChatGPT for Excel. So, and then we have it. So you just click on Add, and then you are done. So let's get back to our lesson. Now, the first prompt we are going to use is the AI.ASK. So we have this question, who is the CEO of Meta? So we simply say equals to AI.ASK, and then this is our prompt. We only have to provide our prompt, and then we just close, and then we wait for it to supply the answer. And then we have it, the answer supplied correctly. And then look at this more interesting task for AI. We want to write an email to my manager to grant me the next 2 days because I took it. So we can actually ask AI to do this task for us. We simply say equals to AI.ASK, and then our prompt is this. Simply ask it to provide us, and you can see that it has actually written the email correctly with the subject and every other details supplied. And then we can ask for more complex tasks. Third question, I want to leave it for you guys to actually use AI for Excel to solve it. But let's see what answer it will bring. Let me just have it here and say equals to AI.ASK, and then I will do this, and then you can see. So it is suggesting that we use conditional formatting to actually quickly highlight duplicate values. Now, for example, what that means that, for example, you have 101, 102, and 101 again, and then let's say you want to find duplicate values. Let's see what this conditional formatting, let's see how it works. So if I highlight this, and then I go to the Home tab, I say conditional formatting, it says this, highlight set rules and say duplicate values, and then I just say OK, and you see that it has actually highlighted duplicate values for me. So conditional formatting suggested by AI is actually correct. So let me get rid of this now. But another thing I want you to note is that now when you are using this tool, make sure you check the correctness of the data that AI is actually providing you with, because some of the data might be outdated, but all the same is actually wonderful. So let's go to, that is AI.ASK, and then we have another prompt that we can use, which is AI.FILL. Now, if you have a set of data that you want to work with and you want ChatGPT to supply the rest of the data, for example, all you have to do is to provide an example, just like this. For example, we have the state in Nigeria, their capital city, and their slogan. Now, I want to walk through this, but I don't want to do it myself. I can ask AI to just complete the rest of the task for me. So I'll simply come here. This is where I want to have my answer. I'll say equals to AI.fill, and then it says an example. So this is an example. I'll simply select this as an example, which I have provided before, then my comma, and then the partial. Now I will simply select the rest of the cells. I want it to supply the rest of the state, and then I will just close, and then I'll press enter, and then I will wait for it to supply the rest of the answers for me. Alright, so we have the rest of the data, as you can see, all of that supplied by AI correctly and wonderfully. So also, here's another example. I have the country, their capital, and their currencies. So I want ChatGPT to feed the rest of this data. So I simply come here and say equals to AI.fill, and then example, I'll provide an example just like this, and then partial, the rest of the data I'll provide like this, and then I will close and wait for it to supply the rest. As you can see, very fast. Actually see Ghana, the capital is Accra, and this is their currency in this format and all other stuffs like that. So this is how you can make use of the AI.fill. And then let's look at another one, which is AI.extract. Now if you look at this data, I have this data, I have names there, my name is Emily Jones and all other stuffs. So in the output, I want AI to look into this data and actually extract only the names that are contained. So I can use my AI.extract. So I'll say equals to AI.extract, and then the values, I'll simply supply these values, and then what did I want to extract? I want to extract the name. I can reference this cell, or I can either write it and put it in quotation. So I'll simply, and then I will leave it. And then you see that from this data, it has actually helped me to extract only the names. And as you can see, these are correct values. So that's one thing. And if you look at this example again, I have this text. I want to extract only the cities. So I can use my AI.extract by saying equals to AI.extract. And then the values, these are the values. And then what do I want to extract? This time around, I will not reference this, but I can put it in quotation and say quotation. I can say city. That's what I want to extract, and then I'll close it. Then you see that it's actually extracted the city, and this one is saying not found because there's nothing in this place. If you look at it, Yola is where I'm at, and it's saying not found. So let's look at it once again. So let's look at how we can extract our cities from this set of from this data. So we simply say equals to AI.extract, and then the values, these are the values, and then what do you want to extract? I want to extract the city. Then I'll just press enter, and then you see it. And if you look at this, it cannot find Yola here, but actually it's still wonderful. Then we can go on to say and go to AI.translate. Now you are working with other member of your team and you want to translate to different languages. This is actually a wonderful stuff. Look at this quotation, look at this text, and I want to translate it to German. I can use my AI.translate by saying equals to AI.translate, and then it says the prompt. This is the prompt, and then it says this is not. So I can use my AI.translate by saying equals to AI.translate, and then it says the value. This is the value, and then the language. I want to translate to German. So I simply do this, and then I will wait for it. Yeah, and you see, in a matter of seconds, I have my data. And you can translate to any language that you want. For example, if I change this to, let's say, I change it to Greek, and then you have it like that. Even you can even create what we call a drop down stuff. You can use data validation to create a drop down for it. For example, if you go to data and you say data validation, and then you create a list, and then you say, let's say Greek, let's say Hausa, let's have Yoruba there also, Nigerian local languages, let's have Arabic, and let's just have that, and then you just click on enter, and then you can select from this drop down. Let's say Hausa, and then it will actually translate it to Hausa, and then you have it. You select another, let's say Arabic, and then you have this. Let's say Greek, Yoruba, and then you have it this way. So make sure you check for correctness and for correction. And then another thing that you can do is that you can actually use AI to create tables, generate data, and create tables. Now, for example, if you look at this, I want to use my AI.TABLE to get the list of the 10 biggest countries in terms of in the world by GDP, population, and electricity generation. So I can simply ask AI to do that for me by saying equals to AI.TABLE, and then the prompt. This is the prompt, and then you just close, and then you have it. So you can see in a matter of seconds, I have the country, the GDP, the population, and the electricity generation. Very fast supply by ChatGPT. And then if you look at this also, you can create a table, a header like this, and then you ask ChatGPT to just fill it by saying, I will just simply come and say equals to AI.table, and then it says the prompt. This is the prompt, and then here I have the header, so I can move from here. Let me move from here. Yeah, I can move from here, and then I'll simply close, and then I have it. I simply wait for it to supply the data for me, and then you see it. So you see the country, you see the capital, you see the date of independence, and you see the currency. This is actually wonderful. Thank you. If you have learned anything, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.